What's up guys? Hope you all had a great holiday, but it's time to get back to the grind. Today I'm going to talk to you about getting cinematic shots. A couple weeks ago I posted a poll on my Instagram stories asking if you wanted to see a video on stabilized shots or cinematic looking shots. Although at one point it was pretty close, ultimately you guys voted for cinematic shots, so let's get to it. So the first and probably one of the most important ways to achieve that cinematic look is by shooting in 24 frames per second. Now, most Hollywood films are filmed at 24 frames per second. So this is kind of what everyone's used to seeing. So, if your camera isn't by default set to 24 frames per second, you probably should change it to that. Because if it's filming at 30 frames per second, you probably notice that your footage looks kind of off. It might look almost kind of sped up. So the first step would definitely be changing your frame rate to 24 frames per second. Also, by doing so, you're going to want to set your shutter speed to double what the frame rate is. So if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, the closest setting on your camera would be 1/50th of a second. This is just kind of the golden rule for getting that cinematic kind of look. So whether you're shooting at 24, 60, or 120, you're always going to want to match the shutter speed to be double what the frame rate is. Next would be haze, or atmosphere in a can. This stuff right here is super awesome. You just give it a shake. And there you go. You just watch it float around and fill up the air. This is perfect for your production because it kind of gives that softer, more hazy look and feel, which is pretty typical of bigger productions. This also allows you to see rays of light that are shining through your scene. They'll be very prominent, so you'll see them going directly through your shot, which kind of adds this really nice touch. This basically, can be purchased in an aerosol can, or you can even get a fog machine, where you'll just kind of spray it in the environment, let it sit for a bit, and it kind of fogs up and softens the look of your shots. And this softer kind of hazy look is pretty typical of that Hollywood movie. The third thing you can do is stabilize your shots. Now, like I said before, I asked if you guys wanted to see a video on stabilizers, but you chose this video first. But I definitely will do a separate video later on about stabilizing your shots. There's definitely more than one way to do it. At the most basic level, you've definitely got handheld shots, then you've got shoulder rigs, steady cams, and then ultimately some kind of motorized gimbal. So each of those will give you a different level of stabilization. Smoothing out pans and camera movements definitely has a more cinematic feel to it. So no matter what kind of stabilization you're deciding to add to your footage, it'll definitely help. Now, shoulder rigs will give you more of that handheld kind of shaky cam look, but it still is definitely better than just hand holding your camera because it'll get rid of the kind of little micro jitters that are usually pretty apparent in handheld footage. It'll basically be the difference between having footage like this and footage like this. The next thing you can do is add cinematic bars to your footage. This is obviously done in post-production, in any editing program of your choice. We use Adobe Premiere over here, but like I said, you can use any program of your choice. Cinematic bars really change the mood and atmosphere of your shots. Since you're used to seeing movies in theaters at a certain aspect ratio, having that wider image definitely helps achieve that look. We've also included a PNG template down in the description below for you to download and just import into your own workflow. The next thing you can do is color grade your shots. I can't stress this point enough. Just filming something straight out of the camera and using that footage usually doesn't have that cinematic look, which is why you're probably unhappy with your footage. Color grading is typical of any kind of production, whether it's big or small. So you're definitely going to want to color grade your footage. You can do so by either playing around with the Lumetri color panel or just downloading one of the many LUTs that are available online. There are definitely free LUTs and there are paid LUTs, but you can find plenty of different LUTs to achieve any kind of color grading you want. To help you guys out, we've also included a download link below to download a couple of LUTs that we've created for you. Another thing you can do to create cinematic looking shots is by including slow motion footage. B-roll is a pretty important aspect of many different types of productions. So for example, if you're shooting a music video, instead of always showing the artist singing or rapping, you're going to want to cut away and show complementary shots. This is your B-roll. So a lot of the time, it's a good idea to film the B-roll in slow motion because this kind of adds an opportunity for you to show a lot more detail, show things happening, much slower than you're used to seeing them. So this has this otherworldly feel, which is what's utilized quite often in bigger productions. So slow motion shots definitely add that cinematic feel. Another thing you can do to create cinematic looking shots would be to shoot in a flat color profile. Something like Sony's S-Log. Most camera manufacturers do include their own version of the log format. So we're using a Sony camera, so for us it's S-Log, but shooting in a flat color profile will definitely allow you to have more control over how you edit your footage. By shooting it flat, this allows you to capture a lot more detail in both the highlights and the shadows. Since you have all of this detail in the highlights and shadows, when you start color grading or applying LUTs to your footage, the highlights and the shadows tend to not get blown out. This is pretty important for your footage because you always want to have as much detail in your shots as possible. Shooting in a flat color profile is definitely a bit more of an advanced technique, but once you do get the hang of it, you'll be thankful that you did start playing around with it. Playing around with different angles is also very, very important to achieving that cinematic look. If you've noticed in some bigger productions, a lot of the time the camera isn't just at eye level with your subject. So if I was just standing up straight, I'm not going to hold the camera in front of my face and aim it directly at my subject. It's a good idea to play around with different creative angles. What I like to do is get down a little bit lower and then tilt the camera up towards their subject. This creates a little more depth in your shot. It allows your subject to stand out a bit more, and it kind of gives them this larger than life feel. The next way you can achieve a bit more of a cinematic look is by adding in movement to your shots. You can definitely get static shots to look cinematic, but adding a little bit more dynamism to your shots will definitely help achieve a cinematic look. If you're filming a scene of, let's say, dialogue, for example, instead of just having the camera right in front of the subject, why not try zooming in slowly or doing a bit of a pan around the subject while it's aiming at their face? This makes the shot a lot more interesting and creates more movement in your shot, which is appealing to the eye. This is definitely used in all kinds of productions from big to small ones, so it's a great way of achieving a cinematic look. And last but not least, shoot with a shallow depth of field. This is one of probably the biggest things you would notice right away in a movie or any other kind of production, where your subject is obviously in focus, nice and sharp and crisp, and the background is out of focus, has that nice bokeh look, because this really helps your subject stand out. This is a great way of driving the viewer's attention to what you want them to look at while looking very, very appealing. It's a good idea to use an aperture anywhere from 2.8 all the way down to 1.4. So there you have it, guys. There's a few ways that you can start getting your footage to look a lot more cinematic. I know it's something that a lot of people want to know, and it's been talked about plenty of times, but that's our take on how you can quickly bump up your video game. If you like this video, please drop us a like, leave us a comment letting us know what you think, share it with your friends, and as always, hit that subscribe button if you're new here. Until next time, peace out, guys, and don't forget to keep creating. See ya.